His most recent book is Servitors of the Empire, Studies in the Dark Side of Asian America. He is the ranking senior professor in the Dept.of Asian American Studies at the University of California, Davis, where he has taught for 20 years. And we're gonna let him just have the floor tonight to tell us what's going on out there. He's closer to Berkeley than we are, unless you're listening to this broadcast from Berkeley. So, welcome, Dr. Hamamoto. Good to talk to you again.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for inviting me on.
You know, when we were on Caravan together the other day, it was
Yes.
it was so I always enjoy talking to you because, by the way, folks, he's a musician. He's just a cool guy. He's the professor that you wish that you have. You know, when you go there, you wind up with a lot of stiffs, but Dr. Hamamoto's not one of them. And I had so much fun talking to you, but on the other sessions that we've done together. But this last week, was really disturbing. And so I invite you to just take it away, and we'll start with this. The reaction of the students, the cops standing down. I guess that the University of California at Berkeley just decided to provide spaces for those who wished to destroy or something.
Well, yes, absolutely. I think the fact that the UC Berkeley Police Department, and by the way, they have their office right on the campus, and they had made preparations, extensive preparations from what I understand, for the appearance of Milo Yiannopoulos, and that's the person that the local Berkeley progressive rags are blaming for starting the riot, which began as a peaceful demonstration, from what I understand, and it was quickly turned into a riot. But the fact that the Berkeley campus police department stood down, to me, indicates that there is complicity and direction from the very top administration. The chancellor of the University of California, Berkeley, or his lieutenants had the police stand down so that the world, because this was I think a staged event, not only for the American public, for the world public, to indicate that President Donald J. Trump is really not in control, and they're trying to create, they meaning the opposition, and we can talk about who the quote-unquote opposition is. The message that's being sent out across the nation, across the world, is that President Donald J. Trump is not in control, and that there's this huge mass population of opponents and dissidents who aren't going along with his program, or the will of the American people, which includes immigration, illegal immigration, that is, I should clarify, in addition to the whole host of problems like the TPP. I think a lot of expectant millionaires, billionaires, or wealthy people in general in the state of California were licking their chops, thinking they were going to be cashing in on the windfall profits that were going to result from the integration of Mexico, the United States, and Canada, and its articulation with the growing economies of Southeast Asia, most notably Vietnam, but also China. And amongst these people are our so-called elective officials, such as none other than Nancy Pelosi. And I'm talking about California senators here. But she's a national figure, of course, as being one of the most ardent opponents of President Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And in addition to that, we also have Dianne Feinstein, who, by the way, some protesters went to her home in Pacific Heights, which is a fairly exclusive neighborhood, and they were protesting her. What they should have been doing, and this further indicates to me that these were staged events, what they should have been doing is protesting her multi-millionaire husband, Richard Blum, who has been making tons of money off, guess what? Student loans.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Absolutely. He also makes tons of money out of these private proprietary schools. So it's in the interest of these families, these criminal families, from the Clintons, the Obamas, and their local outlets as well, their local representatives. I'd also include, by the way, this is a name that hasn't come up in this, what I considered an extension of Jade Helm, which happened last summer. But the figure Leon Panetta, also needs to be brought into the discussion here. And independent researchers, such as your vast listening audience, everybody here who's listening is deputized as an independent researcher. That's how we win this war, through the dissemination of information and analysis. But Leon Panetta is from Monterey. That's his territory. And for those of you who are not familiar with California, that's a little bit below the Bay Area where all this is going on. But Leon Panetta on the national stage was, Secretary of Defense, and he's had all these different cabinet positions. But his turf is where the Monterey, I think there's some sort of language school there. And the reason I mention this is because from what I'm understanding now since we last talked, which was only a couple days ago, this has all the earmarks of a military operation, not just a police action, but a military operation. And as I alluded to in our previous conversation, it is, and it's just not me thinking this. I talked to a lot of people between the time we talked and our conversation right now, and they tend to agree. And we haven't really verified this yet, but they tend to agree that what we saw at Berkeley is an extension of Jade Helm. No
kidding.
Yes, absolutely. And that, in turn, of course, and I've been doing research all day here. It's more of a refresher course because I knew this material already. I am writing a book called New World Order Theory for Students. It's going to be addressed to undergraduate population and graduate students who really need to know what they're studying or what they think they're studying. And I'd like to talk about the curriculum presently in a little bit here. But what we saw with Jade Helm was an extension of, and this is what your audience will recognize, it's an extension of Rex 84, Readiness Exercise 1984. That's the shortcut term for it, Rex 84. However, Rex 84 was supplanted by National Security Directive number 51, NSDP 51. If you want to take note of that, listeners, you can search this later on. And it was also superseded by HSDP 20. These are executive orders. And this makes it even more likely that, because as we know, the classes and the buildings at Berkeley were on lockdown. Well, what if the entire city of Berkeley goes into lockdown, including neighboring communities like Oakland, even San Francisco, or nationally, or perhaps entire FEMA Region 9? Well, the presidential executive orders are in place to make that happen. I happen to think that what was going on Wednesday was sort of a trial balloon to see what the public reaction is going to be, not just in the United States, but globally. And incrementally, the people who are in charge, and I think it's basically a Pentagon operation with the complicity of certain corporatists and other nonprofits, NGOs, organizations, foundations like the familiar Soros one. But it goes much deeper than George Soros. It goes much, and this is what I've been watching a lot of the coverage and listening to people such as Michael Savage, who is a PhD, by the way, from Berkeley in biology, I believe. He's a great broadcaster. I have the utmost respect for him. But the analysis is just sticking on the real obvious aspects of this scenario that unfolded the other day, and that is these punkish, thuggish people in black wearing the balaclava, shooting these, I don't know what they were, fireworks, setting fires, beating up women, spraying them, not with pepper spray, but from what I understand, this is bear repellent.
Bear repellent?
Bear repellent. That's what they use at UC Davis, by the way. This happened a few Thanksgivings away. I was at that event at UC Davis, and at the time I had a real sinking feeling that this was just the beginning of an extended operation against students, young people, and against the entire middle class in general, to intimidate them into silence, which is exactly what we should not be doing, and letting the the black masked hooligans, if you want to call them that, run riot, literally. Because I was at Berkeley. I gave a talk shortly before Thanksgiving this past year, and I'd say the vast majority of students are there to study. They're there to achieve their educational and professional goals, the vast majority of them. And I had a lecture hall full of over 200 people. They were very respectful, and I didn't tell them what I thought that they wanted to hear. I wasn't as provocative, who could be, as Milo Yiannopoulos, but I did touch upon this issue of political correctness that your average undergraduate has been treated to for the past, I don't know, I guess it's been 10 years, 15 years. And it really began to intensify after 9/11. This was the crisis that the establishment, the corporatists, and the criminal elements within certain agencies within the federal government and state and local governments, this was their opportunity to roll this out, to announce it.
This is unbelievable. Now, I know that because you're a professor and you're used to being in the classroom, I know that you can hold your thought in your place. But let's get everybody caught up here.